Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Pesachim. We are up to Perik Vav Mishnah Hey. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana Aranbayev, and Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Menuchatam Began Eden, Amen. The Mishnah returns to the subject of a Pesach offered on Erev Pesach that falls on Shabbat. As we have learned earlier in chapter 5, Mishnah 2, a Pesach offering is valid only if it's slaughtered for its own sake. This Mishnah states the law for a person who slaughters a Pesach on Shabbat for the sake of a different offering. Ha-Pesach sheshechato shelo lishmo b'Shabbat. If a Pesach was slaughtered on Shabbat, meaning when Erev Pesach was Shabbat, not for its own sake, it was slaughtered with the intention that it should be a different type of offering, for example, a Shalamim, and not the Pesach, Chayav alav chatat. The slaughterer must bring a sin offering for this because he has desecrated Shabbat. We know someone who desecrates Shabbat unintentionally must atone for his sin by bringing a sin offering, as the Gemara says in Masechet Kiritut, page 2a. Now the Mishnah refers to a person who did this unintentionally. For example, he thought it was permitted to slaughter a Pesach, not for its own sake, on Shabbat. Now the Torah allows the mitzvah of slaughtering the Pesach to override the prohibition of slaughtering an animal on Shabbat. However, a Pesach that was slaughtered not for its own sake is invalid. Therefore, its slaughterer does not fulfill the mitzvah of Pesach and is a desecration. Its slaughter does not fulfill the mitzvah of Pesach and is a desecration of Shabbat. The Mishnah now discusses the law for a person who slaughters other offerings than Erev Pesach that is Shabbat with the intention that they should be a Pesach offering. Ushal kol hazivachim sheshechatan lishum Pesach, in regard to all other offerings that a person slaughtered on Shabbat for the sake of a Pesach. For example, he slaughtered a Shalamim offering for the sake of a Pesach. The law is as follows: Im enan re'uyin chayav. If they are the kind of animals that are not fit to be a Pesach offering, for example, a calf or a female sheep, because we know the Torah says in Sefer Shemot chapter 12 pasuk 5, a Pesach must be a male lamb or kid less than 1 year old. The Mishnah says he must bring a chatat since he has desecrated Shabbat. Again, if they are the kind of animals that are not fit to be a Pesach offering. However, if they are animals that are fit to be a Pesach offering, meaning a male lamb or kid less than 1 year old, there's a dispute. Rabbi Eliezer mechayev chatat. Rabbi Eliezer says that he must bring a sin offering. The Rabbi Yeshua poter, but Rabbi Yeshua exempts him from a sin offering. Since the animal was the same type as the Pesach, it is assumed that he slaughtered it by mistake in his hurry to bring the Pesach, forgetting that it was a different offering. According to Rabbi Yeshua, when a person commits a sin through an error made while he was trying to do a mitzvah, he is exempt from a chatat, a sin offering. Now this is known as to'eh bidvar mitzvah, one who makes a mistake in the matter of a mitzvah. Rabbi Yeshua holds that if, while preoccupied in trying to do a mitzvah, a person makes a mistake and does a sin that would usually make him liable to a sin offering, he is exempt from the sin offering, provided that he accomplishes a mitzvah of some sort. Here the person was preoccupied with trying to do the mitzvah, bringing the Pesach offering, and while doing so he mistakenly slaughtered a different offering, thereby violating Shabbat. Even so, he performed the mitzvah, since that other offering is a valid offering, just not a valid Pesach offering. And like we learned in chapter 5, Mishnah 4, most other offerings slaughtered for the sake of Pesach are valid, and therefore he is exempt from a sin offering. Rabbi Eliezer does not accept Rabbi Yeshua's rule, and he holds that this person must bring a sin offering just as for any violation of Shabbat. Now Rabbi Eliezer tries to prove his ruling by a logical argument. Amar Rabbi Eliezer said, Ma'im Pesach shumutar lishmo, in the case of the Pesach, which one is permitted to slaughter on Shabbat for its own sake, kishashinat shemo chayav. Nevertheless, if a person changes designation, meaning he slaughtered it not for its own sake, he must bring a sin offering, like we learned in the beginning of the Mishnah. Zvachim shen asui nishman. Then in the case of other offerings, which we are forbidden to slaughter on Shabbat even for their own sake, kishashinat shman eno din shechayav. If a person changes their designation and slaughters them not for their own sake, should he not surely have to bring a sin offering? Meaning, in essence, Rabbi Eliezer is arguing as follows: a Pesach may be slaughtered on Shabbat, yet a person who slaughters it with improper intentions must bring a sin offering. So surely then, if a person slaughters an offering that he was not allowed to slaughter on Shabbat, he should be required to bring a sin offering no matter his intention. And improper intentions should not make things better for him. Rabbi Yeshua responds that these two cases cannot be compared. Amar lo Rabbi Yeshua lo. Rabbi Yeshua said to him, no. that is not a valid argument. Im amarta b'Pesach sheshinahu lidavar asur. For if you say that a person must bring a sin offering for slaughtering a Pesach on Shabbat, not for its own sake, that's only because he intended to change it to something forbidden on Shabbat, meaning he slaughtered it for the sake of an ordinary offering, which may not be slaughtered on Shabbat. Tomar bazvachim sheshinahu lidavar mutar. Will you say the same for other offerings, which he intended to change to something permitted on Shabbat to a Pesach? Since it's permitted to slaughter the Pesach on Shabbat, a person who slaughters another offering for the sake of a Pesach has made a mistake while trying to do a mitzvah, bringing a Pesach. For this reason, he is exempt from a sin offering. No argument can be made from slaughtering a Pesach not for its own sake, because in that case, he has not made a mistake while trying to do a mitzvah. Since he slaughtered it with the intention of bringing an offering that he's forbidden to bring, he was not trying to do a mitzvah. Here in our case, he slaughtered an offering for the sake of the Pesach. It wasn't the Pesach offering. He's making a mistake while trying to do a mitzvah. He should be exempt from a sin offering. Now, Rabbi Eliezer refutes Rabbi Yeshua from another law. Amar lo Rabbi Eliezer said to him, the law of communal offerings will prove that even a person who makes a mistake while trying to do a mitzvah must bring a sin offering. Now, although the term emurin usually refers to sacrificial parts that are burnt on the altar, here it refers to a communal offerings which the Torah said Amar to offer on Shabbat. As the Rav explains, emurin, the korbanot, the communal offerings that Torah said Amar to bring on Shabbat. Shen mutarin nishman, communal offerings such as the daily tamid offerings and the Shabbat musaf offerings are allowed to be slaughtered on Shabbat for their own sake. The Torah says explicitly that the daily tamid is offered even on Shabbat and that a musaf offering be brought on Shabbat in Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 28, Psukim 9 and 10. Vashochet ishman chayav. Nevertheless, a person who slaughters a different offering on Shabbat for the sake of one of these communal offerings must bring a sin offering, even though he has made a mistake while trying to do a mitzvah. So, for example, he slaughters a shalamim offering for the sake of the Shabbat Musaf offering, and this applies every Shabbat of the year, not only Erev Pesach. So we see a sin done while trying to do a mitzvah is not exempted from a sin offering, because here he brought the wrong korban for the sake of the korbanot that the Torah says to bring on Shabbat. He made a mistake while trying to do a mitzvah. So we see he's still obligated to bring a sin offering, that a sin done while trying to do a mitzvah is not exempted from a sin offering. Amar Rabbi Yeshua lo. Rabbi Yeshua said to him, no, that does not prove your argument. Im amarta be'muret tzibur sheyesh len kitzvah. If you say that a person must offer a sin offering for the sin of bringing other offerings for the sake of communal offerings, meaning only because the communal offerings have a set amount. Now, to explain, a limited number of communal offerings are brought every Shabbat. And once those have been slaughtered, everyone knows that no more offerings may be slaughtered that day. So if a person then slaughters another offering for the sake of a communal offering, that's not a mistake made while preoccupied with the mitzvah. It's a regular mistake. Tomar b'Pesach sheno kitzbah. Are you going to apply that same logic for the Pesach offering, which has no set amount? Since a very great number of Pesach offerings are brought on Erev Pesach, everyone is preoccupied with their slaughter, and it's easy to make a mistake and slaughter a different offering thinking it's a Pesach offering. Therefore, a person who does so has made a mistake while trying to do a mitzvah and does not have to bring a chatat. Basically, what Rabbi Yeshua told him was you're comparing communal offerings, which is more difficult to make a mistake because there's a set amount, to Pesach offerings, which there's so many of them that it's easier for a person to make a mistake. And therefore, he says by Pesach, we follow the rule that a person who made a mistake while trying to do a mitzvah does not have to bring the sin offering. Now, this concludes a debate between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Both agreed, however, that a person who slaughters any other offering on Shabbat for the sake of a communal offering must bring a chatat. And the Mishnah cites a different opinion. Rabbi Meir says, Afa shochet l'shem imurei tzibur patur. Even a person who slaughters other offerings on Shabbat for the sake of communal offerings is exempt from a chatat, a sin offering, because even in such a case, he is considered to have made a mistake while trying to do a mitzvah. Now, Rabbi Meir agrees with Rabbi Yeshua that one who makes a mistake while trying to do a mitzvah is exempt. And Rabbi Meir holds that even though a person cannot easily confuse a different offering for a communal offering, one who does so is still considered to have made a mistake while preoccupied with a mitzvah, and therefore it's exempt from the sin offering. And the Rav does tell us, V'anachak Rabbi Yeshua, the Halacha follows the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, V'anachak Rabbi Meir, and the Halacha does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Meir. And that is in Rabotai of Mishnah Hey. Mishnah Vav now continues, besides slaughtering the offering not for its own sake, there are several other improper intentions that can invalidate a Pesach, as we learned in chapter 5, Mishnah 3. This Mishnah states the law for a person who slaughters a Pesach on Shabbat with one of those intentions. Shechato shelo leochlav. If a person slaughtered a Pesach on Shabbat with the intention that it be for those who are not able to eat it, for example, people too sick or weak to eat it, v'shelo limnuyav, or for those not registered for it, la'arelin v'litmein, or for uncircumcised people or tameh people, chayav, he must bring a sin offering, because like we learned in chapter 5, Mishnah 3, such an offering is not valid, and he has therefore desecrated Shabbat by slaughtering it. Like we learned the previous Mishnah, the Mishnah refers to a person who sinned unintentionally. For example, he did not know that it was forbidden to slaughter a Pesach on Shabbat with such an intention. That's why he brings a sin offering. Leochlav v'shelo leochlav. However, if he slaughtered it for those who are able to eat it and for those not able to eat it, limnuyav v'shelo limnuyav, limnuyav v'shelo limnuyav, or for those registered for it and those not registered for it, limulin v'la'arelin, or for circumcised people and uncircumcised people, litorim v'litmeim, or for tameh people and ta'ol people, patur, he is exempt from a sin offering, because in these cases the Pesach is valid and its slaughter overrides the laws of Shabbat. Now the Mishnah discusses one who slaughters other kinds of invalid Pesach offerings on Shabbat. If he slaughtered it and it was found to be blemished and unfit to be an offering, he must bring a sin offering. Now, in this case, it had one of the many blemishes that invalidate an offering from being used as an offering, invalidate an animal from being used as an offering, brought down in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 22, Psukim 17 through 24. Although these blemishes are all on the outside of the animal, this one was not noticed until after the slaughter. He must bring a sin offering. However, if he slaughtered it and it was found to be a trefa, from a hidden defect, he is exempt from a sin offering, even though the offering is invalid. Now, a terefa is an animal with certain fatal wounds or defects. It may not be eaten, nor may it be brought as an offering, as the Gemara says in Masechet Menachot, page 5b. This animal had such a defect, but one that could not be seen until the animal was cut open. For example, it had a hole in its lung. The Mishnah says, patur, he is exempt from a sin offering. Since it was impossible to discover this defect before the animal was slaughtered, his sin was unavoidable, and he is exempt from a sin offering. Now, the Rav explains, a person brings a sin offering only when he sins unintentionally, which means that he did not know or forgot that the act he was doing was forbidden. When a person sins unavoidably, be'ones, meaning due to circumstances beyond his control, he is exempt from a sin offering. If a person slaughters a Pesach that is later found to have a defect inside his body, he could have done nothing to prevent the sin, and so he is exempt from a sin offering. When the animal has a blemish outside his body, he could and should have checked it beforehand, so his sin, though unintentional, was not unavoidable, and he must therefore bring a sin offering to atone it. Now, a Pesach is valid only if it has at least one owner, meaning a person registered to it, who is able to eat it. The Mishnah states the law for a person who slaughters a Pesach that has no owner on Shabbat. If he slaughtered a Pesach and then found out that all the offering's owners had withdrawn their registration from it before the slaughter, meaning as long as a Pesach has not yet been slaughtered, the people registered for it may withdraw their registration and register for a different offering, as the Mishnah will say in chapter 8, Mishnah 3. Here what happened was they withdrew it from before slaughter, and then he slaughtered it, or shemetu, or shenitmu, or that the owners had died or become tameh before the slaughter, and the offering is therefore invalid since there's no one to eat it. Patur mipnei shachat birshut, the slaughterer is exempt from a sin offering because he slaughtered it with permission. Since he did not know that the offering no longer had valid owners, his sin was unavoidable, and he is exempt from a sin offering. Now, the sages did not require a person who slaughters a Pesach to investigate whether its ownership is still valid. Therefore, if the ownership changed and became invalid, the slaughterer is considered to have sinned due to circumstances beyond his control, be'ones, and therefore he is exempt from a sin offering. And that is the Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.